You listen to KDVS Davis 90.3, and today in the studio we have some really special artists that are super, super talented, and we're so lucky to have them here. Kohinoorgasm and Diaspoura. And I'm Ammaar.
And I'm Tania, or Cold Bruja.
How are you guys doing?
Great. Amazing.
And do you guys want to say where you're from?
I'm from LA.
I'm from South Carolina.
And it's your first time in California, right?
It's like my second time, but it's my first real time.
The other time was fake.
It was fake, yeah.
And you guys are embarking on the Digital Dunia tour. Do you guys want to talk more about how that came about?
Yeah. The Digital Dunia tour happened kind of on the fly. I invited Josephine to my house in North Carolina at the time.
In November of 2016? 17. Yeah. I was passing through South Carolina.
Yeah.
Like you do. And Anjali messaged me and was like, hey, I saw you're in the area. Like, do you want to swing by? And I was like, of course. Why not? And we had both listened to each other's music. And then when we met, I think we felt a kindred spirit.
We fell in love.
We fell in love with each other.
And then, since then we say every word together. Since then.
So,
after that, we booked a tour in the Northeast, and it went really well. We booked another show on the fly in Philly because we just wanted to keep performing together.
Yeah, the tour had ended, and we were like, no,
it hasn't ended.
And then it's been like about a year since that tour, and a few months ago, and we'd been talking about doing another tour together, and Anjali hadn't really been to the West Coast. You know, the one fake time didn't count. So we just, I don't know, it just kind of fell together really, really fatefully. Like, some shows came up, and Anjali had been kind of talking about coming out around this time, and I was like, well, there's a few shows that are kind of like in the works on my end. Like, you're more than welcome to just join.
Yeah, so it was pretty much destiny.
It was fate.
How was the most recent show that you played in Oakland?
What was the last show?
The last show, that was in Berkeley last night.
Yeah, at Oscar Wilde Co-op.
How was that?
It was good. It was
fun.
It was fun. It was funny, and it was fun, and yeah, it was a good show.
It was kind of a trip because I went to Berkeley and I lived in the co-ops, and so I hadn't really been back in that area since probably like 3.5 years ago, and yeah, it was cool to feel like the energy of like students who are seeing artists visiting their campus, you know? Like, I feel like people had come to see us, and they were very excited, and that was really flattering and energizing, and so it was a very energetic show, I'd say.
It's really awesome. Well, I mean, y'all have been from beer gardens to co-ops to KDVS, and we're really grateful to have you here. But we're wondering if you could tell us a little more about how you got the start in music. Like, I don't know, if you can pick a place or a time and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Should I go? Okay. Well, I feel like I've always been musical. Like, I sang in the choir at my church growing up, and I did dance. I did all kinds of dance when I was growing up, and my dance training was like formal dance training. Like, I went and took dance classes, and then my singing was mostly like religious singing, and I think it had always really been framed to me like a hobby. Like, that was my extracurricular, or like that's what I did after school because my parents were at work or whatever. Like, I sang in choir at church because that was a way to be involved in our religious community. And like, so it was never really like, I feel like no one ever, or I shouldn't say no one, because there were definitely people who were like, you're great at this, like you should hone that skill. But I feel like it wasn't a popular opinion that was a career path, or I don't want to use the word career because I just don't like that whole system of like, you do this and then you enter your career. But it wasn't a passion I could really like dedicate my full time to. And so but then when I was in college, and I think that was a time when a lot of my agency was being actualized, and I witnessed so much incredible DIY outside of the creative hegemony in the Bay Area, and it was just really inspirational to see people doing whatever they could with whatever they had access to, and that really resonated with me as someone who didn't have like a formal music training outside of like church, and I didn't have any instruments. I didn't have any training in any instruments, but I knew I could do it. Like I knew I was rhythmic through dance and through choir, and through my own like affinity for the underground, like in high school, and my affinity for underground music. And so then I started just producing things in my like co-op in my room, and I was pretty shy in the co-ops. They're like a really overwhelming social environment, so I spent a lot of time just like working on stuff, just experimenting creatively on my own. And I really feel like everything I've done up until this point has been a big experiment, because I don't know what I'm doing all the time, and I didn't know what I was doing when I started, and I just kind of like knew I could do it. And so it's just been an experiment.
And you said that you also DJed at CalX for 4 years of college?
Yeah, that was formational too, because I learned a lot of new music at that time, and I had all these genres I was already attracted to independently, and then I was learning a lot of other like related artists, and I was able to invite local artists onto my show just like y'all are, and I was able to interview them and learn about their processes, which was inspiring for me as someone who was really trying to look into getting going. And so yeah, I love DJing. I hope to DJ again one day.
Yeah, shout out to CalX, because we
Yay!
actually I heard about you guys from the Bass Benefit show, and the booker for that is actually ex KDVS DJ. Shout out DJ Bakwas for that one. And then she referenced me to you guys, and now you guys are here, and we're interviewing you, and we just had a really, really cool set. So thank you so much again for being here.
Shout out DJ Mantis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shout out DIY artistry. Y'all are valid.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I guess similar to Josephine's background, I feel like I had exposure to some arts throughout my childhood, that I was really singing just like privately. It was just like a secret fantasy thing that I was a pop star in my room, like, or in the car when nobody was there. Maybe they were like going to get gas, and I would just sing really loudly in the car. And I did classical Indian folk dance. Folk dance, and then like classical Indian dance growing up. So there's some of that like influence, I guess. And I did computer science and visual art in college. That was like, I kind of did technology because that was like the only science I felt like I could even, there are a lot of brown parents are like, you need to do science, otherwise you're gonna die. And so like, I was like, okay, I can learn technology. And it kind of broke me into feeling like I could do anything that I wanted to on the computer, and the computer would listen to me if I just kept messing around with it. And so I feel like it broke me into the computer. But I was always on the internet. I feel like I got a lot of cultural development just from like being educated on the internet, through the internet. I grew up on a highway, and like I didn't really have much to do. So I was like on the internet most of the time, or I'd be playing guitar. So I played guitar in my room. And Diaspoura came along in college. I was organizing for this after-school program, which uses music as a vehicle for social change. And it's for girls and trans and gender nonconforming youth in Charleston, South Carolina. Right now, they're called Carolina Youth Action Project. They are still doing incredible work, but at the time I was coaching bands and doing like social justice leadership in the program. And the kids honestly inspired me to start writing my own music. I had just been playing other music, like covers and stuff, but they were writing music that they had just written like on the fly. And so that finally, I think, proved to me that I could do that. So Diaspoura started, and I was like first writing my original songs in like, what year was that? Maybe 2014?
2014.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like the visuals in a lot of your music videos or your live performances? I've heard that you guys have performed with dancers before, and even the music videos have a lot of like a really creative element to it. How do you feel like the visuals tie in with the message of the music, or just with the music in general? Do they go hand in hand, or?
Yeah, in college, I was like debating back and forth whether I wanted my computing and arts degree to be like music focused or visual art focused, and I was like, I can do music like on my own in my room, but I don't have like access to a studio. So I was like, I feel like I have like create like a visual scene to what I'm hearing also, and I like to. I don't know, a lot of my work is very gestural too, so I'll take stuff kind of on the fly and then put it all together. And I don't know, it feels very organic to me, but I notice that I like to have a hand in every pot when it comes to working on videos and working on the stage stuff. I don't really like just hand it over. I'm an Aries, so maybe that's just what an Aries does.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel like my visuals are like really, like I've said, I feel very experimental. I really identify with experiments because there's just so much that I'm still figuring out, because it's like, I feel like for me, the process of making a music video, designing a stage, like really art directing my performance is like a really new thing, you know? Like I've never had the chance to do that. There was no class in school or opportunity for me to like learn how to art direct, you know, which is a really cool skill and something that takes practice and takes a lot of like tapping into your internal visions and your dreams. And I feel like that's not something we're taught to do. And so for me, I feel like I'm still developing that. But for that reason, I also love to invite collaborators because they have their visions in those mediums. And I am probably somewhere inside of me a stylist and an art director and a cinematographer, but at this time I haven't actualized those people in me yet. And so I have friends who that's their more focused work, and so I invite them to collaborate, like with Azadi, my first music video. Some of my best friends were a big part of making that happen, and Jasdeep Kung, who directed it, is a really talented and like highly sensitive filmmaker, and so they really led like the direction and the just like all the like production of that video. And so that video is really collaborative because I wanted Jasdeep to feel like I wanted Jasdeep's vision to come into play too. And so a lot of that stuff has been really collaborative, and I like that too because I feel like my art is like not just about me as an individual, like the rise of Kohinoorgasm. It's like there's this whole community that makes me who I am. Like I feel very much a part of an underground community that is like a wide network of people around the world, and we're all bringing our identity-based communities and our our families, our chosen families, our friends into this network. And so I feel like it's kind of just a lot going on with the visual palette for Kohinoorgasm because I see it as a piece of a lot of other things. But I have some dreams for like set design and stuff that I think are like gonna take a gigantic budget. So I don't have that yet. But that's another thing I've learned. Like when I've approached music videos, when I made my cello video, like the original vision for that, I told the director, and they were like, "That's amazing. I'm so honored to hear that vision, but that's like $1 million video." And I was like, fair. Thank you for keeping it real. So I think that's kind of a limitation too. There's a lot I want to do that I just don't have the resources right now. So if there's any funders out there, hey. I promise I will use your money excellently. So will my good pal Diaspoura. so will KDVS. They're looking for a new space, I heard. So
they're kicking us out of this place.
damn,
Hopefully.
that sucks.
In regard to Azadi, which translates to freedom, what does that mean to you?
What does Azadi mean to me? I think freedom is like it's a really complex idea. And I think that a big part of that song that I want people to engage with is the idea of what does freedom mean to them, like the defining of freedom, because I don't really know if I can say anyone on this earth has experienced it. Like we are all trapped in different things, and some people to a greater degree than others. I even think some of the most privileged people are not necessarily free. Like who said that quote that you brought up the other night? Like
Nobody's free till everybody's free. Fannie Lou Hamer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I feel like it's hard to know what freedom is because no one has really experienced it, and I think that's why art is such visionary work, because it's this field where we just get to imagine what those things are. So to me, that song Azadi is like a contemplative space where people can think about that. Like, what does it mean to feel? What does that feel like to them? And I think it's also probably really different for every person in every community.
Totally, yeah. So kind of in the realm of freedom, but kind of thinking about you, I think we were having this conversation earlier about just like bringing your whole self into like any environment, just like having to be prepared to come into a different venue and just like flow wherever you are. So that takes a lot of like vulnerability and like courage and like adaptability. So how do y'all practice self-care as artists?
I guess I can start. Self-care, I mean, it's complicated for sure, but I guess I would say, speaking to our whole selves, whenever similar to what Kohinoorgasm's work has been, like when I try to collaborate with other people, I try really hard to, I guess, like do things differently, even if I don't know what I'm doing, make things very holistic to work with, and make the other person feel like very comfortable working with me, and like they're benefiting from the work that we're doing together, and that they're growing and they're seeing themselves in something. So it could even mean like just being able to hang out for a while and get to know each other really well before we start working together, making sure that they are in the like a comfortable mindset and like a headspace, making sure like both of our mental health is good before we like just dive into a work. And so like for my music video Glisten, like I invited them all to my home, and we like all kind of sat around and we were sharing our histories, like our ancestral histories, like before we even started working together. And honestly, the first time that me and Josephine, like the first day, sleepover of our tour, we like both just told our entire histories to each other, and we just,
as much as we know.
As much as we know, and just kind of like family things, and just like
all the things that make us, or not all, a lot of the things that make us who we are.
And so that we could just get a sense of what might come up, what struggles we hold that may come up during our process. And that's like one way that I see self-care.
A lot of like mindfulness work in community
being like not even just independent, but like making sure like we can have like this interdependent trust in each other, that like we can take care of each other during the process of art. Me personally, I feel like I need other people to help me take care of myself, because I feel like I get taxed out a lot from just giving a lot of energy. And I feel like I've yeah, I've been burnt out. There's a lot of songs about me being burnt out. So self-care individually, it's more complicated. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so complicated. And I feel like art's such a difficult transaction because it's not like anyone asked me to share my songs or something. And yet when I'm one person sharing them, like at this point, like a couple thousand of people are engaging with them. And that's a lot of extraction for such a little return on my end. And like, of course, it's a huge privilege to be able to share my story and to be able to make music and explore my imagination like I get to do. But it's also, I'm putting out work and I put in a lot of time. And I had to go through all the things I had to go through to share the stories I share. And people are consuming it like for free. Anjali and I were talking about how when we post on like Instagram, people are just like clicking through our lives like mindlessly, and this is our lived experience. And especially as artists on the internet, like sharing our day-to-day is like can be a deeply personal thing, and it's also like I think a really valuable insight into how some of our stuff operates, like when we're on tour, like sharing things kind of like behind the scenes moments are I think really valuable. And so, yeah, there's that facet. There's like that energy exchange and just like the disposability of things on the internet, of content but I also think that, yeah, just sharing in general is really emotional. And I feel a lot of push and pull with myself. Like there's a lot of experiences that I know people would feel really comforted hearing, that things like that I've been through, things I know I can speak on, community issues that I know I have an emotional investment in, but I can't talk about them because they're really personal to my family. And like there's things I can't say online because I don't want to put people close to me in that situation, but I also feel like my art is so based on my identity, and to have to exclude parts of it because of how it might be received or how it might affect people near me is just like a tension that I deal with. And so that impacts my mental health. I also feel what Anjali's saying, like it's really important to me that people show up for me too. Like a lot of people offer to collaborate on songs, and I just feel like that's really one of a million ways to collaborate with someone. Like if somebody wanted to like book my tour, that'd be really helpful so that I didn't have to play the manager and the artist all the time. Like if someone wants to tour with me, like that's a great way to collaborate. Like we were booking this tour together, and that I think took a little load off of each other, that we could do that together and share that responsibility.
Because we like will be researching different acts to like get bills together. So we basically act as like promoters. We're like the booker. We're like just the assist,
the manager, like
the email
social
people,
media coordinator, the receptionist,
the driver.
In the whole Kohinoorgasm office, it's just me, and I'm like that SpongeBob episode where everyone's like in the drain and everything's on fire, and I'm like,
right, and that's not what you see. Like it's just like on social media or listening to your music and like not contributing.
And then people are like, "Wow, touring sounds so fun," and it really, really is. In a lot of
When's
ways,
the next album?
And then I'm like at home, like, oh my god, like how am I gonna do my day job and like answer all these damn emails and like negotiate all my own contracts? I don't even know how much I'm owed. You know, I don't have a manager. I have no gauge on like how that works. So, anyways, that's really stressful.
That's real.
Basically, we just answered the self-care thing. We're like anxiety. But we're here for each other.
We're in love.
I support you.
Thank you. Yeah, mental health is a big question because there's just so many ways. Big question mark. Yeah. And I feel like vulnerable after shows too. Like there's definitely this thing I feel after some shows where even if my set's really good and I had a good time, it's like a come down almost. Like, you know, I go home and I'm like, I just bore my soul. Like, where is it? You know, and I'm like, I need to call it back into myself and just ground myself and be like chilled out again. Yeah.
I think both of you said that, you know, identity plays a big part in your music. Do you want to talk a bit more about like what role it plays specifically?
Well, I have a lot of things to say. about like with my songs, I like came from an organizing background, and so like I just think that performance is a space where I don't always get censored. And just like my art in general is like a place where a lot of artists are doing really incredible work just in the fact of they're saying things that are not being as censored, and they're saying raw things. So I try to like take a lot of opportunities, and I personally think that I need to be speaking from where I'm coming from personally and not speaking for other people. So a lot of things come back to my life and how this has, because all oppression is so connected to everyone. And like the diaspora, people migrating to this country, it's like even if you're not an immigrant, like you may be the child of an immigrant. Your family could have been displaced because of like immigration. You could be, you could be like, dealing with visa stuff and like constantly be in transition. So oppression is connected. I just try to like base it on my life. So I find myself talking a lot about my life, and it's hard to share so much information about yourself, especially when all of these corporations are taking data on our lives, and like even the government is like cracking down on people who are speaking up. So it makes us nervous to share, and we have to like really choose what we can share, and be really particular about how we say things too, so that they don't they are appropriate and like can resonate with a lot of people too, and can make like an impact. So
yeah. I feel like identity is really important to me, and I think I sing a lot about my emotions, and I feel like my emotional identity is like a big part of me, like as someone who's survived abuse and who has experienced multiple emotionally and psychologically abusive relationships, romantic relationships, and those have been really big parts of me because they really impacted who I am and who I was at that time, and all my relationships were impacted by those experiences. And so as someone whose identity is heavily psychologically based and like neurologically based, I am always cognizant of like I never know who I'm in community with, because you never know who's a survivor. You never know who has neurodivergent family members or who is themselves neurodivergent, and so I feel like I try to see my identity as something that's like, I try to see my identity-based community as something that's really expansive and sensitive, and like you just never know who could be a part of it. So I try to keep myself really open as an artist to a lot of people, because I just never know people who resonate like surprise me all the time. Like I get messages about people really feeling what I'm saying about that kind of stuff, and not that I ever expect it to be any kind of person, but it just always goes to show that you never know who you're touching, and
Right.
and so that part of my work is really important, because I feel like that's helped me feel really seen when I was approached by people who never assumed anything about what I'd been through or where I was at or what I could bring, like who really accepted me as I am. And I think that that's been like a critical part of my identity work, is just a lot of like adaptability and like open-heartedness.
And both of you have talked about artist rights are very important to both of you, and how streaming isn't necessarily the best option for making this a viable, I wouldn't want to say profession, but creative outlet for just to sustain it. Where can listeners and fans, what's the best way to support you guys?
yeah, I would say like it's so great for y'all to stream our work. Like we're not saying you shouldn't stream us, because we're on the platforms to be streamed and we want to be accessible. But at the same time, you should just know that the money that you're paying every month doesn't actually go to the artists that you stream to necessarily. They're making
Only a very
extremely
small portion.
small, and it's actually this law is being lobbied right now, and it's trying to be updated, but corporations like Spotify are lobbying against the law for songwriters to get paid more. So it's a issue that's happening right now. And I think the best thing that you can do is for artists that you really believe in and you want to see prosper or you just listen to frequently, just even if you're not like going to play the MP3, just go ahead and buy their track. Like people used to have a budget for buying CDs and stuff. Like you could maybe throw an artist $10 if you have been listening to their tracks a lot, or if you really like them and you want to see them do more music.
I also get this like nice question sometimes where someone will message me or come up to me at a show and just be like, I really like what you do. How can I support you? Or like, I'm a this. How can I use my skills to support you? And I feel like that's kind of a nice way for me to be like, okay, like, let me think about what I need and what kind of skill set you might have, and then I'll let you know. Because sometimes I get people being like, hey, let me make a beat for you, or hey, this and that. And I'm like, well, I don't really need a beat. Like, but it'd be nice if they were like, hey, I make beats. How can I support you? I'm like, you could buy my album. Or like, I don't need beats. You could
share it.
You could,
out.
Yeah, share my thing on your blog if you have like a SoundCloud or whatever. I don't know. It's just nice when people kind of present like an
what do you
open-ended
need?
question. Yeah, what do you need?
I also have a Patreon account right now, which I recommend for other artists that are looking to fund their work in a more sustainable way. I was completely burning out from I was just getting mental illness from being an artist and like not knowing how I could be paid, and at the same time just dedicating so much time into booking shows and not actually writing more music. Mm-hmm. So I started this Patreon account so that it could help me actually sit down and do non-booking touring stuff. And it's been really helpful. Kohinoorgasm is an artist supporter of Patreon. There's a lot of great artists that are linked on there, but it's patreon.com/diaspora if you're interested in supporting. Yes, that's my little.
Sweet. On that note, yeah.
Do you want to shout out any Instagrams, Facebooks, whatever social medias you guys have so people can keep in touch with you and know when you're in their city? Venmo.
Yeah. Patreon.com/diaspora. Yeah. Number one. Number two, at Diaspora Venmo.
And that's spelled?
Diaspoura.
Yeah. Because I know some people.
And also Instagram at Diaspora, Facebook/Diaspora, diaspora.com. I made a little web page. I coded it myself.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm Kohinoorgasm on everything. I don't yet have a Patreon.
Venmo.
I have a Venmo though. It's Josephine Shetty. That's my Venmo. SHETTY. And Spotify. I'm on the streaming platforms. Kohinoorgasm.
Both of you are on
Tidal.
Tidal.
We're on Tidal,
I switched to Tidal
Spotify,
recently.
Apple Music.
Cool. Yeah, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just Kohinoorgasm.
And if you want to really support, also get involved in tweeting and everything about the music laws that are happening too. That's a great way to support artists. Just being involved in that conversation.
And what does the future hold for both of you? More music, hopefully? And
hopefully, if people support me, then I will. But otherwise, I'm just going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. I hope more music.
We hope so too.
I'm going to be in love with Anjali forever, though.
Yeah, with my corpse. Maybe.
Yay!
Thank you for sharing space with us and performing. We really appreciated y'all.
Thank you guys so much again. That means so much to all of us for you guys to be here and perform for us in such an intimate space. So.
Thank you, KDVS. This is the Digital Dunia Tour.
This has been KDVS Davis. Thank you so much, guys.